Mister? How do you operate this Twitter thing or this Instagram thing or whatever the heck? You're supposed to know all this stuff. Anyway, welcome back to the show.
Ah, my dear wife with that voicer. SNWMN Multimedia is how you follow everything that we do. Calling all small businesses. Want to get your name, your products, and services out to a local and national audience? Then choose the 360-degree advertising option of Snowman Multimedia. This is the network where every fan has a voice and every team has a fan, and we want you to be a part of it. Call 317-762-8567. That's 317-762-8567. Or drop an email to info@snowmanmultimedia.com. That's info@snowmanmultimedia.com. The new website is live, and we got a whole lot of space for you. All right. Bottom of hour two continues. Hour two continues. We're at the bottom thereof. And someone very special to me is waiting in the wings. I had her on a couple of years ago, but wasn't able to follow up because I eventually got sick and stricken with cancer. And she has just been moving the ball all over the place. In fact, that has been my motto, which I absolutely love. Here is the creator of the Move the Ball podcast. And brother, she's been moving the ball ever since the first time I had her on. This is Jennifer Garrett. She joins me right now. How are you, my dear? Great to have you.
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me back on the show.
It's been a while. I know everyone, you included, has charted everything I've been through from cancer to my kidney failure and everything. It's just it's good to see you, and it's good to have you back on.
Well, thank you again. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you're on your road to recovery too, and you're keeping the ball moving as well with this show.
You had a chance to experience something, and of course, this is why I'm wearing the Colts shirt in Indianapolis, Indiana. Tell me how was the combine? How crazy and how fun was it to be at Lucas Oil in Indianapolis for that event?
Well, those are two great words that you used, crazy and fun. There's a lot going on. I've been going to the combine probably for 8 years now or so. I lost track, but it's always a good time in Indy. Lucas Oil is a fantastic venue to host the combine. I'm hoping they continue to have it for many, many years. As you probably know, they are secured to have it for 2025, but after that, don't know where it's going to go. So, but it's great to be in Lucas Oil. Love seeing the guys out there doing their on the field drills. There's a number of guys I know that were out there. So always enjoy cheering them on. And then there's just all kinds of people that I get to see. It's kind of like a reunion every year. I get to see a number of the team guys as well as agents there that I usually don't see throughout the year, except for the combine. So I look forward to going there. And the nice benefit for me is I got lots of steps in too.
Good.
So my Fitbit was proud of me.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to get back moving myself. Hopefully this Friday I'll get the chance, even if it's with the use of a cane, to get back moving again myself. You also had a chance to experience something I wanted to but couldn't because of my health. How was the Super Bowl in Vegas?
Oh, Super Bowl is a great time. There's always so many things going on that weekend, lots of events. I actually fell at an event a couple of days before Super Bowl. I rolled my ankle on some stairs at an event and I toppled down the other stairs, just a couple stairs, got a bit banged up, but I kept it moving, although I'm still recouping. I hit my hand pretty hard on the cement as I fell. So I'm not fully recovered yet, but it's always a good time to be out there too.
I know it was crazy in Las Vegas because a lot of people were sending me pictures saying, wish you were here and we hope to see you next year at the Super Bowl. When it was announced that the Super Bowl would be in Vegas, did you anticipate it being this crazy?
I mean, there's always a ton of people that flock to the city of the Super Bowl, whatever that host city is. But I mean, it was probably a little bit more chaotic than other cities just because it is Vegas. But I wasn't surprised per se at how busy it was. I will tell you what was surprising was how much the tickets were. I had friends that a friend of mine, he's been a lifelong 49ers fan, and as soon as the 49ers were in, he was telling me like, I'm gonna go get a ticket. They were $7,000, and he's like, oh well, maybe I'll wait. And then they were $10,000 a couple hours later. He ended up going to the game, but he spent $15,000 on his ticket, and his boss paid $25,000 for his ticket. And I'm just like, that's just insane.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. This is a catch-up session for Jennifer and myself, and I want to take everyone back to the beginning. Tell me how you got the Move the Ball podcast and foundation started. I gotta hear this again.
Yeah, so it started with I wrote a book called Move the Ball. And at the time that I wrote it, I didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't grow up in a football family, so I had no industry context. But I was a student of the game ever since I was 4 years old, and just wrote in that book about what I knew about football and the parallels between football and business and life, and how you could take football specific principles and apply them off the field to be successful. And I say football specific principles because in the book, it's not just about the hard work or the teamwork or the discipline. It's about recognizing the blitz is one of the chapters, or focusing on getting the next first down. Like all of those things have meaning beyond the game, right? And so that's how it started with this book. So I wrote this book. I'm super excited, just like any new author, to get it out there and tell people about it. And so every event that I could go to that was tied to a professional sports team, most of them the Bears, since I'm from Chicago and a Bears fan. But I would physically go to those events in the hopes that like, oh, I want people to hear that I wrote this book, and maybe this will be a great thing for me to get in that space. And most people could care less. They weren't rude, but they weren't overly excited,
Right.
And so but I just kept at it. And then social media became more and more of a thing. So started networking online through different platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, etc. And by continuing to connect with people, that's how I got to build a name in the space. And then back in 2020, I started a podcast called Move the Ball. And the focus of the show was, again, not so much on like the X's and O's, but more on the high performance, being successful. How do you take that competitive athlete mentality and use it off the field to be successful?
Right. And it's a wonderful podcast. I love listening to different podcasts. I love creating it. I'm totally hooked, because the first time you told me about it, you said you need to go take a listen. Yeah, I haven't put it down yet, and I won't either. I absolutely. Where can people find it?
Yeah, it's on all the major podcast platforms: Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible. So just type in Move the Ball and whatever you listen to your podcasts at, and you should be able to find it.
And that's where you find this show. Also, we just launched on all the major relaunched, I should say, on all the major podcast networks. What has been, since you wrote the book and since you started your podcast, what has been a couple of your biggest challenges?
That's a great question. I was thinking you're going to ask, like, what has been your most exciting, right? But challenges. Yes. So, I mean, as a podcast host, with anything, you've got to continually to promote what you're doing, right? Whether it's a book, it's a podcast, it's a product, whatever it is that you're putting out there, it's a lot of work to let people know about it. And so it's just from a time standpoint, you've got to carve out that time to post the content. You can hire somebody to do it too, but it's the constant promotion of your show is the one thing I would say for me too. Sometimes it's a little bit more frustrating when it comes to scheduling guests, sometimes getting them to lock in on a time. And in fairness to the guests, sometimes it's because they don't know, because their schedule is so dynamic with some of the athletes that I'll give you an example. I do a Path to the Draft series in the spring where we're featuring every day an episode. The show is normally twice a week, but during this Path to the Draft series, it's every weekday. We're releasing an episode with a draft class guy. And so I have to obviously record those, not live. So I'm recording in advance, and I want to have a good number of them already recorded before I release that series, because we're daily. And sometimes trying to get them to lock in on a date. Well, so what happens is they go to the combine, right? After the combine, it's not just sit and wait till the draft. They're getting called by teams because teams have their 30 visits. And so there's pro day, they're getting ready for their training. So there's a lot of other things that are going on still. So trying to get them to commit to a date and time to record is sometimes challenging because they don't know their schedule. But then it makes me it's hard for me because I can't plan out recording other ones because I'm trying to stay flexible for, a particular guest. So I'd say that is a very stressful time for me, just trying to get all of those things, the logistics around all of it.
Yeah, I've been through the same thing, especially when COVID hit in 2020. Of course, you remember at the time I was living in North Carolina, and I happened to I will say I lucked up and I got Lee Woodall, former 49ers linebacker, and Gary Reasons, former Giants linebacker, within a couple of weeks of each other. Glenn Parker, former Buffalo Bill, joined me. Richmond Webb, former Dolphin. So I'm learning from you how to make contacts and who to contact and things like that. But you're right. The promotion is the hardest thing because it's the most time consuming, time intensive thing. And like you said, you could hire somebody to do it and you can show them how to do it. But here's the thing. What if they, you know, what if they run into a wall? How will they get past that wall? How will they see your vision to get past that wall? When you run into that, how do you handle it?
So I do all the promotion myself. I'll take that back. I do have a podcast team that does the post production for the show, and so they create some of the images that we use, the artwork and the audiogram for the show. But I've been with this team since I started the podcast. I'm in season 5, so we started in 2020, and so
Right.
we have a pretty good communication style of, this is what I'm looking for. They know my vision, but no matter how long you've been working with someone, it's very, very important to make sure that they understand what are your objectives, right? Every season. So I run my show in seasons. So before the start of every season, I meet with my podcast team and we talk about, okay, what is it that we want to get out of this season for the show? Where are we looking to go? What's different? What's changed from the last season? So that way we're all aligned on, the vision for the show and the things that we're focused on.
Yeah, and it was tough for me to see the vision. I knew I had ideas, but I didn't have a full vision until I met Jody. And Jody gave me a very simple sentence, and I'm finally leaning on it. She said, "The snowman is your brand. Use it." And I thought about relaunching my radio station, my online radio station, with an old name. And she looked at me and said, "Why are you doing that? Use your brand, use your name, use your brand." It takes for some people like myself, it takes a while, but I think I finally got it. Now it's just getting everything streamlined and it's getting the promotion streamlined and everything. I'm working on putting an editing team together. There's a couple people that I use, but you really have to be focused and show the people that you want in your circle what your vision is, and as you mentioned, get them aligned with what your vision is.
Right, absolutely. And so it's, having people and sometimes those people aren't the ones that you have day one. It's an evolution too. Sometimes you have to cycle through a few different groups of people. I mean, it's a reality. We don't want to do that. And it's frustrating to not have someone get it, that you thought was going to be the one. But,
Right.
I've been blessed that I've had some great people. And there have been a couple of people that have been part of that team through their company that they have kind of transitioned out because they weren't meeting the standards that we were looking for. But I mean, that's entrepreneurship, whether you have a podcast
Yes,
or
it is.
not. Like, you're always going to have people. I mean, even in the corporate world, which I was in for many, many years, you're going to bring people on that aren't quite aligning with, from a company value, or their performance just isn't there. And so, you just have to go through that process and that evolution.
What made you leave the corporate world and say, you know what, I'm going to follow my dream and chase my dream and do this as an entrepreneur? What was the light that turned on for you when you made that decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people, when they leave corporate to go focus on their thing, they're unhappy, they're unfulfilled, and they're, screw the man. I don't want to work for someone anymore. They're bitter and they're ready to go. For me, it was very different. For me, I always wanted to be in the Fortune 500 C-suite. I worked in multiple Fortune 50 companies, climbed the ladder fairly quickly. So in my 20s, I was in senior leadership, and my peers were in their 40s, 50s, some were 60s. And so for me, I thought, life was great. And then something happened, which would be the light bulb, although it wasn't a pleasant experience. And that was the passing of my dad. And he had passed away very unexpectedly. And what happened was, I was living in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the time. I was sitting at my dining room table. My phone rang. I looked at it. It was my mom. I was like, I'm too busy. I'll call her back later. And that was the phone call that she was letting me know my dad had passed away. And my dad was not sick. There was no warning. Basically, he was older. He had chronic pain. And so he took meds for that, which made him sleepy. Told my mom he was going to take a nap, not uncommon for him. An hour later, his phone rings. My mom's cooking in the kitchen. He doesn't answer it. So she goes over to check it, and my dad had passed. It was that quickly. And so what bothered me after, whether I took that phone call or not, the outcome would not have changed, right? My dad had
Right.
passed. But it
Right.
bothered me that I chose to say that I was too busy to take that phone call. And I was like, well, what the hell am I too busy doing?
Mhm.
I am a workaholic. I admit it. I know I have a problem. But what I thought about was, what is it that I'm too busy doing that I couldn't take a phone call? And I had been focused on that Fortune 500 C-suite. I had 7 degrees. I worked on billion-dollar deals. Like, I had a strong resume, right? And people would always talk about how impressive it was. What I realized when my dad passed was 2 things. One, you really are replaceable. And 2, the world keeps moving, whether you're in it or not. And so I was like, well, what is it that I want to do to leave a legacy? Because at the end of the day, no one's going to give 2 shits about my resume, right? Like, while
Right.
we're in conversation,
Right.
yeah, it's great. When I'm gone, no one's going to care about that stuff. So
Mhm.
I was thinking about, what do I want to leave behind? And I had already written Move the Ball, the book. And people started using, the phrase move the ball a lot in conversation, or they'd call me and they'd say, hey, Jen, I heard someone say move the ball and I thought of you. And I was like, that's the thing. That's the legacy that I'm going to leave. So I thought, okay, one day I'm going to go leave corporate and then focus on this full time, not knowing when just yet, but
Right.
that was the goal.
Right.
And then I was in a job that it was very stressful. I started having health issues, and I'm like, no job is worth your health. That's a takeaway.
Mhm.
No job is worth your health.
Yep.
And so I said,
Yep.
I'm out. And I was under a relocation agreement. So I had to stay for a certain amount of time, or I had to pay back the expenses to move
Mhm.
me, which I'm sure was quite a bit. And
Yep.
so I said, okay, I'll stay till then. It'll give me time to get ready, do what I need to, get things in place, and then I'll go. Well, that day came and went, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not ready yet, not ready.
Right.
And I kept pushing that date back, and I wanted to have a date. Like, I like having dates of significance. So for me, I wanted it to be the 29th of a month. So it was going to be April 29th. My birthday's on June 29th. So 29 is a special number. So
Mhm.
April 29th. Nope. Came and went. May 29th. Nope. I'm like,
Came
I'm
in.
not leaving on my birthday. July 29th. That's going to be the date. And so that date came and went. And a friend of mine was like, Jen, you just need to go. And I was like, easy for you, Corey. You're an entrepreneur, but you have no kids. I have 5 kids. I'm a single parent. Like, that's
Right.
a big, different decision to walk away from your good paying
Yep.
job. Right. So I kept pushing it back. Long story short, November 5th is the day I left. November 5th would have been my dad's birthday. And so for me, that was the best date to have something meaningful, because had it not been for my dad passing in the way that he did, I might not have ever left. So that's the story.
For me, I grew up in Chicago. I
Mhm.
listened to many a Bulls game on first WMAQ and watching it on WFLD, the simulcast, WIND at first. The first Bulls game I ever heard with Jim Durham was on WIND in 1985. They were playing the Milwaukee Bucks, and I absolutely loved how he called the game. Later on that year, I was introduced to Wayne Larrabee, who I had the pleasure of meeting and who's very dear to me. I had a simple philosophy. If Jim Durham can do it, so can I.
There you
And
go.
for almost 30 years, I've had people to this day, tell me I'm crazy for following my dream. People tell me, you need to be realistic. You're older now. There's no way you can do what you're going to do. And finally, Jody woke up one night and woke me up and she says, we need to talk. And I got scared and I said, okay, she's going to give me the think real talk. And I was ready to receive it. She looked me dead in the eye and she said, chase your dreams, full bore. I've already achieved everything I wanted to achieve. I want to see you chase yours because I know you're going to support me when I get something on my mind. Ever since that day, launched in. I've made many mistakes. I've climbed many a mountain. I fell into many a valley. But as November 5th is significant for you, June 25th is significant for me because that was my dad's birthday. And that was also the day I got married in 2019.
nice.
So I wanted to have my dad present at my wedding. That was the day. That was the day we selected. But Jody said, follow your dreams. Go. I mean, she would kid around with me all the time saying, hurry up and make $1 million so we can get out of here. And I'm just laying on the floor laughing. And she pulls me aside. She goes, I'm kidding around with you when I say that. I'm like, baby, I know. She says, I know you're working hard. If you need me to help with anything, just let me know. She is now the chief financial officer of my company. And when the first couple of sponsors, which I'm going to get before the summer, when they come in, I'm gonna make a phone call and say, baby, you can come home. I got us.
Nice. Love it.
And part of that I owe to you. You keep cheering me on, saying keep moving the ball.
Yes.
You know how many Jody has rescued me 3 times when we met, from cancer and from this recent amputation of the big toe on my right foot. She has been there. Okay. If I don't do it for anybody else, I do it for my family. And this is also for me because I had a dream in 85 saying I'm going to be Jim Durham or Wayne Larrabee or John Rooney. Okay. If they can, I had a simple mission. If they can do it, I can do it. And I stick with that. Do I have a degree in this? No, but I got about 30 years worth of experience calling games and hosting a sports show. Chicago State gave me the chance. I took it and ran with it.
Love it.
They gave me it. They gave me a chance. Matter of fact, John Kalidas, I got to shout him out. Heard me doing a play-by-play sequence in the hallway. He yanked me in his office. He says, either you're crazy or you're my next play-by-play announcer when we cover Chicago State basketball. This was 1995. And I close with this. The way my career got started was purely off an idea. My friend Kevin checked out a camera from the speech and theater department. And I said, can you attach a microphone to that? And he said, yeah. What do you have in mind? I want to try something. Now, I was there for another event, so I'm already in a shirt and tie. Man, we got to the gym, got permission from the coach at the time, which Bulls fans recognize, Craig Hodges. He was the coach at the time in 1995. He said, go for it. So we got permission to set up on the track, and with only a roster and about 3 lines worth of notes that I wrote, that was my first call, December 7th, 1995. Been chasing that dream ever since, and I'm not going to stop either. And I know you're not going to stop with the Move the Ball podcast, which I absolutely love. Folks, do me a favor. Subscribe to the Move the Ball podcast with my dear friend Jennifer Garrett. It's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. The path to the draft, you better pay attention because that's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to cheat off of her and take a lot of notes when I do my own series. When I do my own series of that, I'm going to cheat off of her. I'm going to look over her shoulder and cheat off her paper. Okay, he does this, and that. No, I'm just kidding. But we're gonna have a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to you continuing to move the ball and your path to the draft. Jennifer Garrett joining me here on the program at the bottom of hour 2 here on this Wednesday edition of Snowman in the Morning. Thank you so much, my dear. I look forward to more of your coverage. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for having me on today. It's great seeing you.
Great seeing you also. Pause for a break, and when we come back, hour 3, and y'all know what's coming next. Snowman in the Morning with Cole Johnson, back in a flash.